Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Victoria Esquimalt Police Board meeting. I'd like to begin this evening's meeting with an acknowledgement that we are on the homelands of the Lekwungen-speaking people, the Songhees and the Esquimalt Nations. For those of you who are watching at home, I don't even know why I'm bothering to look at the camera this evening because our camera is unfortunately broken. So this will be an audio broadcast of our meeting. And we apologize and we'll hope to get that technical difficulty fixed soon. And also I did want to note that we usually post our agendas for the public on Friday afternoons. And there was some technical glitch. The agenda wasn't posted. Well, it was posted, but it didn't make it through the firewall or something, I don't know the technical term, onto the public site. So it is there now for those of you who wish to follow along. You can go to the VicTV board site and look at the agenda as you go through it. Now, before we have an adoption of the agenda and get into our formal business this evening, we do have two guests here, our colleagues, Mayor Murdoch of Oak Bay and Mayor Screech of View Royal. And they are here tonight to present to the board and the public on the new integrated police units regional governance council, which some of you may have read about in the front page of the Times Colonist not too long ago. This has been an effort of the mayors of all municipalities, both RCMP and municipal, over many years. And they're here today to present to our board and to the public what this new commission is about, what it's responsible for, and what it's going to do. And they will then answer any questions that our board might have. So Mayor Murdoch, I see your camera on. I'll turn it over to you. We do have your slide deck, and I'll ask Colette to get it up on the screen when you're ready. And the viewers can see you because you're online. They just can't see us.
Sounds good. I can't see you either. So thank you very much, Mayor Helps, Chair Helps. I appreciate being here. I am going to do the brief presentation. Mayor Screech tasked me with that, but we're both here to answer any questions. I see you have that up on the screen, so we can walk through it that way. That's probably as simple as we want to go. If you want, I can share my screen as well, but it's probably just as easy to, it looks like a little, yeah, I'll if that works for you, that works for me. Am I good to start, Mayor Helps?
You sure are. Colette, can you make it just a little bit smaller because it looks like the whole slide's not totally on the screen. There we go. Okay, go ahead, Mayor Murdoch. It's all yours.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So if we go to the first slide, just there we go, just a history slide. Yep, next. So just a little bit of background. Mayor Helps and Mayor Desjardins and your board are probably more familiar with the history of this than I am, having been around it longer. But really came out of I think, it started off after a discussion after there was a closure of one of the integrated units around regional policing and a question of how are these decisions made, and is there a role for the broader community to have a look at the need for and the use of these integrated units. And out of that discussion, the police services from the province stepped in and was very generous in providing both funding to provide resources to do some research and look at potential models. They came back with a couple of potential models. Those were worked with both the police chiefs of the region and the mayors to look at models that would work. Though that was refined, and ultimately we finished on a final terms of reference at the end of last year. We ratified those with our first meeting this year in February of 2022. Move on to the next slide. So the Integrated Police Unit Regional Governance Council? It's called the Governance Council, but really it is a soft model. We don't replace any of the police boards or the civilian oversight of RCMP detachments. It's really intended to be a collaborative model where we're looking at the current units, potential new units for changes, modifications, establishing, decommissioning, anything of that nature. We don't have budget oversight, but we do review the budgeting pieces to look at the priorities, et cetera, and provide some input into those. It's a non-trivial amount. The integrated police units that we'll be looking at have a budget of about $2.4 million. So pretty substantial, and it's worth having that discussion. ultimately, the information that we collect at the Governance Council does just go back to the member boards, whether that's the CAO and mayor and councils of RCMP detachments, or to the municipal police boards like the Victoria Esquimalt Police Board. Next slide, please. So the structure of this is we have a terms of reference, and those are available. They've been shared out. Happy to share them again if you wish to the board. Essentially, though, it is just all of the mayors of the region. So there's 13 mayors. In RCMP communities, that can be also councillors that might represent. There's co-chairs because we have both RCMP and municipal. So in this case, I'm Kevin Murdoch. I am the mayor of Oak Bay, and I represent the Oak Bay Police Board, which is a municipal police board. Mayor David Screech, who's here as well, is of course the mayor of View Royal, and View Royal is one of the West Shore RCMP detachment municipalities. So the idea is that at all times there's a joint sharing of both RCMP and municipal from a leadership perspective, and we share those responsibilities. Our police staffing provide the administrative support to help organize the meetings, keep minutes, etc. Police chiefs from all the jurisdictions attend ideally, and additional leadership is appropriate. For example, we intend to invite the commanders of the various integrated police units themselves to come in and provide additional education and share in that discussion as we're talking about the specific individual integrated units. Important to note that there is ex officio both RCMP regional Island district, but as well we have attending with us members of the police and security branch. So this is police services typically who are attending. They've, as I said, very instrumental in helping us get this set up and are there as well to provide information. So we anticipate that they'll also be presenting quite a few aspects of what they're doing provincially to encourage improved policing oversight and standards enforcement. Those also apply, of course, to integrated police units, but without boards to oversee them. This is a way for us to share that information and provide some of that oversight. All this being said, we know this is the first year and we're going to be learning as we go. Next slide, please. These are the municipalities included. I'm not going to read them aloud. Next slide. We have the mandate. I'm not going to read this because it's in the terms of reference, but again, at the very highest level, we're there to work with the police leadership and the integrated police unit leadership to make sure that there's a community lens put on what's happening in those police units and that we can work collaboratively. I think the one thing we understand about policing as a civilian police board, this, police success is measured in many ways by how the community feels about how the policing is being provided to them, and where they can provide that feedback through the municipal police boards. There's no mechanism currently until this was set up for that civilian or community voice to be heard at the integrated police unit to kind of share back to those police units how the community sees that they're doing. Are they seen as successful? Are they seen as impactful and providing the services that people expect? So this is just a shared approach to making sure that we're achieving the best outcomes for those integrated units. Next slide, please. Guiding principles, I'm not going to go through many of these, but we just really want to make sure at the end of the day that integrated police units are successful, that they're meeting the needs of the community, that they're cost effective, and that there's as much transparency as we can provide within those structures back to our various police boards as well, and councils and RCMP detachments. So just as a very high level, these are the 5 units that are included within the scope of the Integrated Police Unit Regional Governance Council. Again, I'm not going to read them, but you have a pretty good sense. They form a significant portion of the work that's done through integrated units. The only ones that aren't included in here are the ones on the next page. But before I go there, I just want to point out that there are both RCMP involved units, which includes a mix of municipal and RCMP units. And then, of course, there's a couple of those units, the emergency response team and the public safety unit, which do not include the RCMP. And this is largely because the emergency response team they have their own within the RCMP. In the next slide, lists all of the other things that could qualify for integrated units or service agreements or things of that nature that are not included in here. And these are mostly the rationale is pretty obvious on these. They're funded differently. They are either just point-to-point agreements like the Saanich Bay Agreement. There's the Combined Special Forces, which is again funded more federally, and things like Crime Stoppers, which are not a unit to speak of, but they're just services that are supported. So next slide. So what are we doing this year? As I said, we're going to be in a little bit of a learning curve as we go through and start to work together to look at the issues as they arise. I think what we've already started is the process, and your chief Dalmatic came and presented a little summary of all of the police units to make sure that we were all in the level playing field before we started this process. And so we'll be doing a bit more deep dives into those integrated police units, understanding what their challenges are, what their opportunities are for change, looking at the budgets this spring, ultimately probably looking at things like fee structures and cost sharing, and again, relying on the province to help give some guidance on some of that, what's been done elsewhere. And ultimately, much like police boards, looking at things like advocacy and specific issues as they arise with those units. Next slide, please. And that's essentially it in terms of the overview. And I'm very happy to answer any questions. And I'm very thankful that Mayor Screech is here as well to help answer questions.
Great, thank you. And thanks to both of you for coming this evening. Are there questions from the board? Sean, go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation, Mayor Murdoch. As chair of the Governance Committee, I find this council really intriguing and interesting. I'm looking forward to the work that comes out of it. So a couple of questions. The council looks like we're looking at the integrated safety units at a regional basis, and we're going to be providing some advice and input on some of the issues facing the respective communities, which I can see that. How will the council maintain its clarity and making sure that it adheres to, say, governance policies versus, say, an operational aspect? And of course, that's always a balancing act, as we all know. But I just wanted to know what the council will have sort of in place in terms of sort of like a stopgap measure or a checkpoint, if you will, so that it doesn't unintentionally step into the role of the chiefs of the respective communities that, my understanding, have a very good idea of these integrated units, who are also very good at, with their own operations. Just curious to know that question. That's one. And then secondly, I understand the membership of this council are the mayors, which I understand per the Police Act, in municipal policing currently, the mayors are the default chairs. However, VicPD board and others have indicated to the province that we asked the province to amend that the chairs of the boards not be the mayors by default, that they perhaps be asked to if they wish to be, and so, for example, as sort of a collaborative measure. And I know this is not just a BC only thing, because other provinces in Canada have this model where the mayors are not the default chairs. So we're kind of running in the lone position here with that model. So I guess what I'm going for is that with the Special Legislation Committee coming out with their recommendations at the end of April, and if they come out with the recommendation that the mayors not be the default chairs, and if that ends up being the way some communities choose to go, how will this council adapt to that measure? Will it be just the mayors only going forward, or will you be open to perhaps, and I understand this is a learning curve, a learning year, so I completely respect that, because there's going to be a lot of issues you'll be dealing with. And I totally happy that this council is coming about. I see it's been happening for a number of years, so I really support what you're doing. I'm just wondering how the council will have the opportunity to perhaps we look at and say, okay, well, we're all mayors, but now some of us may not be leading our community per se on the board, maybe we're going to have somebody from the governance committee or someone somewhere else or somewhere. Would your council have that ability to adapt to that change. So those are my two main questions. But overall, very much appreciate the presentation, and I think this is something that has been a long time coming. My understanding from other mayors. So I appreciate your time, and again, I'm really looking forward to the outcome and a dialogue that you folks will be creating because. A layer of another layer of oversight is never a bad thing ever. So thank you very much, both of you.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Mayor Murdoch.
I'll take a stab at this, and then David, if you want to jump in and fix my answer, please do. The governance question and not operations. Yeah, this is obviously the line that we walk at all times in governance models. We don't have any direct say in operational pieces. So unlike a police board where you actually can step in to a degree with your leadership, that's not really the role here. It is a soft governance model. So our goal is to understand the operational needs and to help those be successful, but we actually can't direct the specific integrated police units in this model. So those boundaries were laid out within the terms of reference for the IPURGC. And we're going to just work with those, and those were established in partnership with the chiefs, the province, and with the mayor. So I think we're in pretty good standing on that governance side. Doesn't mean we won't say the wrong thing occasionally, because that always seems to happen. And then the membership side of things is interesting, and I think I just have to defer to see what happens from the province on that one. Right now, it was started by the mayors because there was no other mechanism to do it. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter that much. I think the rationale for having the mayors on this was that it does fit, again, within the confines of the Police Act and how that's all structured. It seemed the simplest way of managing to ensure odd situations don't impact the broader consideration of the region. So actually, your board is a good example where you have two municipalities, but one police board. This model allows for all the mayors to be there to make sure that even if there was a police board that represented 3 or 4 jurisdictions, that all of those jurisdictions have a seat at the table and have a visibility into it. The hard part would come, I think, coming back. RCMP detachments are always have that connection back to the CAO and mayor, and through that to the council. In a municipal police board model, I think we'd have to think long and hard about how that would come back to the affected police boards and how that line of communication would happen. Because right now it's pretty straightforward. The municipal police board, the mayor is on the police board and therefore can bring back information from this unit or this governance council back to the relevant police boards. Did I miss anything, David?
No, I think that was a good answer. I think as mayors, we felt it was important that it be mayors, at least for the time being, but it's up, of course, to the councils as to who they appoint to a certain degree, and they do have the right to appoint a councillor if they would prefer to. But I think at our level, we felt that it should be the mayors.
And just for clarity, the RCMP jurisdictions have the ability to appoint a council, but the municipal jurisdictions don't.
Right. Yeah.
Doug and then Charla, and then the chief would like to make a comment at the end. Doug, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mayor Murdoch. I enjoyed your presentation. Be careful how I ask this question. I noticed, and I think this was a good step forward to providing some oversight or governance over the integrated units. However, I noticed that you've got governance or oversight over 5 integrated units. There's more than that, more than 5 integrated units that are not within your scope. And of course, one of your mandates or things you're looking forward to doing is advocacy for other, I'm looking for the word here, sorry. Shoot, hold on, apologize. Come on, computer. Advocacy for other regional police issues. So are you anticipating or will you be advocating to maybe integrate other police units, policing units that would be a common interest to the entire region at some point in the future? That's an area that I think we should be all interested in looking at. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Sorry, Lisa, jumping in there without you going through you.
It's okay, you can't see me, so you're
I
good. You
can't.
can-
I'm blind. So short answer is there's two aspects of that. One is a lot of these that aren't included are just outside of this lower mainland. So they include some island-wide things where they're very, very local to point to point. So we're probably not looking at any of those listed as being added to our regional governance council. If we thought they would work, we would have included them. However, the second part of that question is really, is there anything else that we could be doing as regional policing models? And the answer I think on that one is yes, and that's something that we want to look at. I think both either establishing new or even if something is no longer providing value, that we look at, is that still a viable model, or do we merge those two together, or things of that nature? So this is exactly the kind of forum that we wanted to have, was to look at the regional needs and to be able to have those frank conversations with the police leadership about how we can achieve better policing outcomes regionally.
David, I saw your hand as well. Did you want to add something?
No, I'm good. Thanks, Lisa. I think Kevin answered that perfectly.
Thank you. Charlotte?
Yeah, so thank you, Kevin and David, for joining us. I don't think we've ever had other mayors at our meeting. And I just wanted to say that this seems like a really great initiative. It's wonderful to see all the different communities working together. So thank you for probably adding an extra meeting to your lists to get this work done. And I also just wanted to note, Kevin, I really appreciated that you noted that a police department success, I don't know your exact wording, was basically based on community support. Because as we all know, in policing, there are so many different variables, like even the incidents that are happening right now over the past few weeks in our region. So I think it's really important to know that sometimes big issues arise, and that's not necessarily at the department's fault. If we had a bank robber causing a string of robberies or something. But anyway, I really appreciated that comment.
Thanks, Charlotte.
Thank you, Charlotte. Before I go to the chief, are there any other questions? Okay, chief, go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you, Chair. So thank you, Mayor Murdoch and Mayor Screech. I appreciate the presentation. And I just wanted to just provide some commentary from the police leadership lens. So, really, we've had one meeting, and I know we've got another one coming up, I believe, next month, but just really appreciate the curiosity and wanting to be better informed. This is, you mentioned in your presentation, an opportunity to look at it from a community lens. Well, that's exactly how I see this kind of unfolding from the mayor's group. A unified group of leaders across the region that can support governance and can support police operations from a global kind of regional level. I really do feel that when it comes to collaborative decision-making, your group can be highly successful and can really, really leverage the leadership opportunities and the connections that you have in creating either its efficiencies in the region or looking at regional public safety concerns and issues and advocating on our behalf. Just work that we're unable to do. So I just applaud the work that's been done, and I'm hopeful, and as our police leadership in the region here, to looking forward to working with your group. So thank you for your presentation.
Thanks, chief. Anyone else? Okay, thank you to both of you for coming tonight, and also for putting your hands up to be the first chairs of this new initiative. We know that getting things off the ground is sometimes difficult, so thanks to both of you. And feel free to stay and watch the rest of our meeting if you wish, or carry on with your evening.
Thanks for the offer, but no, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
perfect. All right.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Okay, with that, we do need a motion to adopt the public agenda for tonight. Okay, Michaela is moving and Bella is seconding. Are there any changes to the agenda? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. And again, to the public, it must be very odd for you to hear us, not see us, so hopefully our camera will get fixed soon. The next item on the agenda is the adoption of the public minutes from the meeting of February 15th. I need a motion to adopt the minutes. All right, thanks, Bella, seconded by Charlotte. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Okay, seeing none. Sean, I saw your hand. Did you have an addition to the agenda? I apologize if I missed it. And could police board members turn on your cameras if you feel comfortable so doing, so at least the public has, all they have now is Doug. So if anyone else can join Doug, that would be great.
Where did Doug's flowers go?
All right, Sean, did I see your hand? Okay,
Yeah, no, it's fine. Sorry, I'm having trouble with my camera. I'll be there in a second. Sorry.
okay, no problem. Camera trouble is the theme of the evening. So we are all in favor of the minutes and no one is opposed. Chief, I'm gonna turn it over to you to your chief constable update, and I know that you'll cover off the trucker convoys, which I know a lot of the public is worried about and interested in, and whatever else you'd like to share with us. So please go ahead.
Sure, perfect. Thank you, Chair. So I'm just referring to page 14 of 62 in the package. Just kind of summarize some of my activities since the last board meeting. I've been engaged internally doing my chief's briefings for the early part of spring. I've attended 6 sessions. They're listed by the different divisional briefings that I've held. I've been very well received. I'm trying to keep my comments to less than 15 minutes and really opening it up for a lot of questions. A couple of the patrol watches have asked staff to submit questions to them. So there's actually questions that are waiting for me for those that maybe don't feel comfortable asking questions in a group setting. But it's really, I've been encouraging to see the level of dialogue and engagement from our staff. Mayor Helps, I was with you on the 26th, along with Inspector Jones and one of our community resource officers for the coldest end of the year walk. So participated in that. I did try to get out as much as I could for external engagement events. On Sunday the 6th, I attended with a number of our Vic PD staff to support Sergeant Steve Cowan, who was our runner for the Wounded Warrior Run, which Steve was a part of a team of primarily 6 runners. The team expanded to 8 runners as they got to Duncan, running the whole island in support of the national programs in support of Wounded Warriors Canada. And so for those new board members that may not be aware, the Victoria Police Department last year partnered with the Wounded Warriors Canada group, and we have a number of their mental health programs that they offer that are now provided to members of the Victoria Police Department, which is great to see. I attended the Justice Institute graduation ceremony this last Friday. We had 6 recruits that graduated. We are excited to welcome them back, and they've started work since then. This is their first week of being qualified police officers. And yeah, I'll move right into 3 updates that I have. So I'll start off first and foremost with the Freedom Convoy protests. So, we see a number of protests, and as the board is aware, 170 protests in the calendar year 2021, up from 66 the previous year in 2020. In 2022, the frequency of protests have not stopped, and a number of them have been regarding the Freedom Convoy and anti-vax protests and whatnot. And so for Victoria, we've seen 7 protests occur on consecutive Saturdays, 7 weeks in a row. But having said that, there's been other protests and support for whether it's the war in Ukraine and other protests as well. But the ones that have really taken a lot of kind of public support and public interest has really been the impact that the Freedom Convoy protests have had on residents here locally. So each one of these protests requires an operations plan. They do vary week to week, even though we've had them in 7 consecutive weeks. And we've seen highs of up to 7,000 protesters that have attended. Now that 7,000 includes protesters, but it also includes counter protesters. People who are here wanting to challenge and maybe provide a different perspective than the protesters. And so it's been a challenge for the Victoria Police Department to make sure that there's deconfliction, make sure that emotions don't get high, and making sure that there's no assaults that are taking place between the 2 different protest groups. In addition to that, just supportive of Victoria Council in kind of expediting the bylaw to allow tickets to be written for excessive noise and honking. It has been quite disruptive for residents and businesses alike for 7 weeks. And that is now coming into the larger Freedom Convoy, which is destined for Victoria. And so there's a tremendous amount of planning and intelligence gathering that's going on as to what that may or may not look like as this larger group is headed to Victoria. I'll just leave it at that. There's a number of contingency plans that are in place. We're talking to all of our partners throughout the province of BC and making sure that we're well prepared and that we have a plan in place that really deals with a number of eventualities that may or may not take place, but that the residents of and the citizens of this region are rest assured that the Victoria Police Department, in partnership with our other police agencies, has a plan in place to make sure that what we saw happen in the city of Ottawa doesn't occur here in Victoria. Two other updates that I have since the last police board meeting. One was the homicide that happened in the early morning hours of Tuesday, March 1st in the 500 block of Yates Street, where an individual was stabbed. Unfortunately, he passed away. Our major crime detectives did attend the scene along with our forensic identification section and our patrol officers, who did an amazing job to seize perishable evidence and to secure witnesses at the earliest opportunity. That investigation has since been turned over to the Vancouver Island Integrated Major Crime Unit, who has assumed the homicide investigation. We did identify an individual, and that individual has since been arrested and remains in custody. And the last update that I have is wanted to highlight shortly before noon on Friday afternoon or Friday at lunchtime, our officers responded to an attempted knife point robbery in the 1400 block of Government Street, downtown Victoria. A woman was walking in the area when she's approached by a man who pulled out a knife and demanded her purse. The woman screamed and was able to distance herself from the man. Luckily, she was not physically injured in the incident. Our officers flooded the area, and we had a really good description provided to us, and we were able to arrest the individual within 7 minutes of police responding to that call. So just wanted to kind of highlight the work and our response to that serious incident. That's my update. Happy to take any questions if you have any.
Great, thank you. Questions for the chief? Okay, I have one question and then one comment mostly for the public. Was that person who was arrested for robbing someone at knife point, were they held in custody or were they released back into the community?
That individual was held in custody and he attended a bail hearing the next morning. And so some of that would depend upon the history, the level of violence that we would be seeing and whether that individual was released. But in this particular incident, he was held in custody.
Okay, so but we don't know if he was released on bail?
No, I don't know that. I would hazard a guess that more than likely he would have been released on bail the next day under conditions, but at least we kept him overnight until he made his first court appearance.
Okay, thank you. And the conditions would be something like no knife wielding in public?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have what the conditions are and I don't want to speculate what they would be, but they would be a certain, conditions related to the offense in question.
Okay, thank you. And then just for the public, you'll notice that the chief's report looks a little bit different this month. And what the board has asked the chief to do, particularly because we want the membership to know that the chief is he's out there in the community everywhere, but also that he's in here in various briefing rooms and so on. So the board has asked the chief to report to the public, not only on all the community activities that he attends, but also on the work he's doing internally at Vic PD, because we know that that's equally important, as does the chief. So chief, I want to thank you for the new approach to reporting, all of the watches that you've seen. And I think that's it's certainly of interest to the public, the board and Vic PD as well. So if you would like to carry on now with the equity, diversity, inclusion, engagement and update. And again, some of the work that's happened in the community, but if you can talk about any of the work that's happening internally as well.
Sure, perfect. Thank you for that. So I've just got two things to report. And again, it's on the bottom of page 14 of my Chief Constable monthly activity highlights. And on February 24th, I attended the virtual Community Partnership Network webinar that was titled, the topic was Racism in Greater Victoria, Results and Lessons from Our Community. That's something that is of great interest to me. And I have been working with the Intercultural Association on their survey and some of the recommendations coming from that. And I wanted to just partake in this particular webinar. And on March the 9th, I participated, as did my leadership team, to jump into the ocean to raise money for Special Olympics BC and participated in the polar plunge. And as are a number of our officers and staff throughout the region, it's a virtual plunge from March 5th until the 20th, and it's still ongoing. And the last time I checked, the Victoria Police Department had raised $15,000 for a great cause. So we're still raising money, and was happy to kind of participate in a good cause. Thank you.
And Chief, any updates on the work that's happening internally on equity, diversity, and inclusion?
Nothing to report. I know that there's some action items, just since the last update to now, there's really nothing substantive to report. I know that I'll have something to update on one next month.
Perfect. Okay, thank you, Chief. Now we move on to committee updates for the public. So if people are tuning in for the first time, just so you know, the police board has 3 committees. The Human Resources Committee is chaired by Charla, the Governance Committee is chaired by Sean, and the Finance Committee is chaired by Doug. And the committees report up to the board. Sometimes there are recommendations, sometimes there are reports for information. So I'm going to turn it over to Charla. There are 3 items here if you'd like to give an update, and then just one motion, I suppose. And for the public, we are on page 15 of the agenda package.
So I think, is my BCAPB update just in here, or is that separate?
It's separate. It's after the board chair's update.
Okay, perfect. So for this one, we have our BCAPB conference that is coming up in Surrey on May 26th to 27th. This is the first time BCAPB's been able to offer an in-person conference. Our theme will be reconnection, as many of our board members from across the province have only met on Zoom. And this motion, we have 2 actions. So the first action is we want our board to confirm conference attendees. And I guess my question is, Colette, has anyone let you know if they're interested in attending, or should we poll right here?
So far, Michaela's indicated interest.
Thank you, Doug. I see your hand.
Yes, I would like to confirm that I would like to attend as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm president and I will be there.
Okay, and Paul would like to attend as well. And Bella and Sean. Okay, good. That's great. I think that will send a strong signal. So thank you to everyone. We've got funding because no one's traveled anywhere for any reason for the last 2
Well,
years.
I look forward to seeing everyone at the conference. And so that is our action. So thank you for the support. And our motion is that our board provide a generic sponsorship contribution of $900 towards the 2022 BCAPB conference. And in previous years, our board has also contributed this $900. That's where this number comes from. And board contributions to the conference then offset the costs of registration.
Okay, so would you like to move that recommendation?
Yes, please.
Okay, is there a seconder? Seconded by Bella, thank you. Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Unopposed, that carries. Maybe you can all travel over as a convoy if we're allowed to use that word in other contexts. Charlotte, please continue with your update.
In here, we have our just on our agenda, the Vic PD SMT succession plan. And 3 directors will be retiring over the next 3 years. And their portfolios will be reviewed to ensure proper alignment. We have our Vic PD hiring priorities and strategies, and steps are being taken to ensure the HR division is adequately staffed to undertake the task of hiring several new staff this year, which is very exciting. And that is my update.
Thank you very much. And it just SMT, for people who don't know the acronym, it's Senior Management Team. Thank you for that. And Charlotte, thank you for all your work. Being chair of the HR committee is a big job, so we appreciate it and acknowledge your work. Doug, I'll just ask if you could go on mute while you're not talking. We hear a bit of rustling. And actually, don't go on mute though, because finance is next. So apologies, you're up next. We've got a few reports here, and if you want to turn it over to Steve to walk through any of them, but I'll just turn it over to you as finance chair.
Thank you, Chair, and I apologize for not putting it on mute and then taking it off again. Yes, on my report, I've got 3 items. The third one being the board did discuss whether the board should be donating to charities as a board or leaving it up to individuals to donate to charities as they wished. And the board did agree that it would be best to leave it up to individuals in their own personal capacity to make donations to charities as they preferred, and the board should not take a position on those sort of things. And now I'll go back to A and B, and I'll turn it over to Steve to provide a brief overview of the overtime report and then the financial reports, both of which are in the financial package. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And just before I turn it to Steve, the board has asked for monthly overtime reports so that we can track overtime, because this is a key cost driver in the organization. So I just want to thank Steve for doing this extra work each month, but it allows us to track it in real time. So over to you.
Okay, so just starting with the overtime report, just a slight change in format to break out the recoverable overtime separately from the non-recoverable. At this time, so this report brings us to February 26th. So at that time, overtime costs were slightly over budget, but they are starting to pick up. And there's basically two sources of our overtime that's driving that right now. The first is our front line, which is keeping our minimums, and that's obviously tied to our vacant positions, the fact that we're down on numbers. So it's offset by salary dollars. There's money in the budget to cover that off. The other one that's driving our overtime right now is emergency response team, but also protests. And protests obviously is becoming a significant cost. You'll see in this report the numbers are starting to creep up. However, there's always a time lag between when the overtime is actually incurred when we see those expenses. So in the next month's report, you're probably going to see a significant increase in those protest overtime costs. However, we are working with the province to try and reimburse many of those as we can. I have not recorded those as recoverable as yet because it's not really certain how much of that we'll recover. We're fairly confident we will be able to get a significant portion back. I know like our operations planning team is working closely with the province to do that. Other areas right now are mostly within budget. So that's really the two main points of the overtime report. On the monthly financial report, it's a slightly shorter period just because of the reporting times to pull the information off. So up to February 22nd, slightly over budget. However, that is normal this time of year. There's a number of factors in there that kind of skew the numbers. Benefits loading on salaries is high at the beginning of the year because we have employer portions for CPP, EI, things like that. So that tends to go down as we get into May, June. So if you take that into account, salaries are still going to be below budget. We also have a significant number of retirements in the first half of the year. So that skews the retirement expenses. So we take those out, we're actually within budget. Nothing of concern there. Just the only other thing to point out is software costs will probably be higher than expected this year. We're finding that those costs are increasing significantly. So we'll have to take that into account for next year's budget as well. And also we're still working through the same supply issues that everybody has. I think that's it for it.
Thank you, Steve. Doug, before I turn it to the board to see if there are any questions, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, thank you very much. I think Steve covered it very well.
Okay, any questions from the board? Yeah, Paul, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Just on the general costs, what impact do you expect the cost of gasoline to have on our operations going forward?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell because they went up and now the oil price is going down again. So obviously they'll have a negative impact on our vehicle operating costs. Hard to tell until we start seeing those charges come through the city. They do bulk buy. So it'd probably be a while before we actually see that translating through just because they buy significant amounts at a time. You know, as we transition obviously to more hybrids, more electrics, hopefully that will have a positive impact. We have been investing in hybrids. I know we did get one electric that we are going to be testing in. So hopefully as we transition, those fuel costs won't be as relevant as they were.
Thank you. Now we're in competition with the West Shore RCMP who are going all electric in their Teslas. So hopefully that puts some some fire under us as well. Certainly did when I read that. Just thank you, Steve, for your report. And for the public who might be looking at the agenda on page 19 of 62, there's a really good bar graph that lays out really clearly the reasons for overtime. So if people are interested in diving in. So thanks, Steve, for putting that together for us. And Sean, you don't have an official place on the agenda here because there were no motions coming forward, but as governance chair, is there anything that you wanted to say or add before I leave the committee reports?
Thank you, Mayor. No, I think everything's good on our end for right now. So I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next item then are board co-chairs updates. And just for members of the public, Mayor Desjardins gives her regrets for this evening's meeting. She has a budget meeting scheduled at the township and she's mayor, so her primary obligation is to go and chair that meeting. So she is not here. So I will give this update on both our behalves, and there's actually here a recommendation for the board to adopt. So just for the public, I'll walk through it. The board will have read the package in advance, but the Victoria Esquimalt, as everyone knows, shares a police department, and it's governed by a document called the Framework Agreement. And there are three parties to the Framework Agreement: the Victoria Council, Esquimalt Council, and the Police Board. And the process for amending the framework agreement involves all three of these parties. As anyone who's been watching our meetings for the last 7 years will notice, Mayor Desjardins and I have operated in a co-chair role. Officially in the Police Act, there is no actual co-chair because there aren't there aren't any other departments that are chaired by two mayors. However, we've been operating based on a policy rather than based on the framework agreement. And given that there is an election upcoming in October, and one of the strategic objectives of the board is to, I forget what the wording is, but basically future-proof the framework agreement. This is that strategic priority being delivered by myself and Mayor Desjardins. So the proposal is very simple. It's basically to amend the framework agreement to enshrine in it what is currently simply just board policy, that we will go back and forth between being lead co-chair and deputy co-chair, or that the future mayors will, and operate as we have been. So the motion that needs to be made, but first I'll ask if there are any questions, is the board approve and also request that the township of the Esquimalt and City of Victoria approve the following wording to replace section 3.2 of the framework agreement. And that is on page 31 of 62 of the package. So are there any questions before I ask someone to move the motion? Okay, relatively straightforward. Oh, Doug, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, too many buttons to push here. Yes, I just wanted to emphasize that the reason why this was brought up in the first place, as Mayor Helps said, to future-proof our framework agreement, was frankly because our two mayors, Mayor Desjardins and Mayor Helps, for the last number of years have worked so well together as co-chairs and cooperated so well together. We want to make sure that that degree of cooperation is preserved for as long as we can, regardless of who's in the mayor chairs going forward. Thank you. And if you want, I can raise the motion.
Sure, that would be great. Thanks, Doug.
Okay, and I will move that the board approve and request that the Township of Esquimalt and the City of Victoria approve the following wording to replace section 3.2 of the framework agreement. Under 3.2 co-chairs, the co-chairs of the board are the mayors of Victoria and the mayor of Esquimalt. One co-chair will serve as the lead co-chair and the other co-chair will serve as deputy co-chair. The co-chairs will alternate between lead co-chair and deputy co-chair every 2 years unless the co-chairs agree on another length of time.
Thank you. Moved by Doug, seconded by Charla. Is there any discussion?
Good job.
Okay, and then Colette, I guess the follow-up would be that we'd write a letter to both councils asking them to also approve this change. Excellent, thumbs up. Okay, all those in favor of the recommendation? Are there any opposed? Okay, none are opposed, that carries. And that ends our update. And that now takes us to Charla, who is our board rep, as well as the president of the BC Association of Police Boards. And Charla, over to you to give that update.
Yeah, so as mentioned earlier, we are in the thick of conference planning. So I've been in a lot of conference planning meetings, meeting with hotels. We've moved our conference initially from Nelson to Surrey. We're actively working with the newly formed Surrey Police Board. So this should be very exciting. And my first time chairing anything BCAPB in person, and I've been president for a while. Also tomorrow, I am presenting to the special committee who is looking at the Freedom of Information Act at the legislature as role of BCAPB president, speaking on behalf of BCAPB. And I believe that is my update at the moment.
Great, thank you, Charlotte. Are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, it's really wonderful to have almost our whole board attending the conference. I think that'll be a good showing from Victoria and Esquimalt, and everyone will learn a lot. So that's great. Thanks to those of you who are going over. Board member engagement update. To members of the public, we put this on here because it's an opportunity for the board and board members to report on any activities they've undertaken in the community. We were discussing earlier, and Sean's going to put on the governance committee agenda next time. At one point, pre-pandemic, board members were assigned to different community and community associations, and we'll reinvigorate that process, and that will give the board more connection and contact in the community and have more to report on a monthly basis. But having said that, we have left this agenda item here over the course of the pandemic in case anyone is out there either online or in person and wishes to share any updates. Yeah, Charlotte, go ahead.
My update is I met with Sandra Richardson last week, who is CEO of Victoria Foundation. And through our conversation, I had brought up a presentation that Chief Manick and I had given at a previous BCAPB conference on understanding the impact of bias and racism in policing. And we're currently finding a time for Del and I to do this presentation to the board of Victoria Foundation as well as their staff.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thanks for that. Anyone else have any updates? Sean, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just want to say that, through in person and online, now things are sort of changing. Now COVID is still a concern, but, we'll be able to manage it better. I've been able to get out a little bit more and support initiatives such as the Wounded Warrior Run, the coldest night of the year, which was the chief had mentioned that he participated in, and of course the Polar Plunge. Some of the membership were quite active and engaged, and I was helping sort of promote that online. I will mention that later this month I have been invited, I should say, to attend the opening of a library by I believe the Muslim Youth Association of Victoria. So I think we'll see some more activities and more engagement from our board membership going forward, and as public mandates allow. And of course, and you're right, Mayor, we will certainly have a conversation about perhaps getting board members more engaged with different community groups and community neighbor associations. That's something that I think I'm very excited to hear that we could pursue, and I think that will be quite beneficial for us as board members to get some good positive feedback from the communities and what they will be looking and seeking from their police department. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And just on that note, we may wish to, given the board's strategic priorities with a heavy focus on addressing racism, diversity, inclusion, and equity, we may wish to kind of rethink and revisit maybe not just community associations, but maybe some direct outreach by board members to various communities, Indigenous, Black, people of color, and so on. So that will be a great discussion to have at governance. So I just wanted to say that so it wouldn't be forgotten. All right, speaking of board strategic priorities, that is the next thing on the agenda. And we put these here every month for transparency so the public can see what the board is working on in our governance role with the Victoria Police Department. We do report out on these quarterly. Each committee chair is responsible for outlining their work, and that will come at a quarterly update. And then the framework agreement we also put on the agenda each time as well, just in case there's anyone who wants to raise anything with respect to the framework agreement. So I guess I should ask if anyone wishes to raise anything with respect to the framework agreement. Okay, we did just make a motion to amend it. And then the last item here is a report for the board's adoption. This has been developed through a subcommittee of the board, the Organizational Culture Subcommittee, to make recommendations and really for the board to take responsibility in responding to the health and wellness issues that were raised in a survey of the members, as well as equity, diversity, and inclusion. This is here for certainty and transparency and to demonstrate the board's role. And really, with this, we will look forward to the next deliverable coming out of this report, which is for the chief to report back at a May board meeting with a roadmap for a healthy and inclusive workplace. So we're really looking forward to that work. There's a lot of good work going on internally in the department. And this is the board's three-page effort towards that, those important issues. So what I need is a motion to adopt this document. Thank you. Moved by Paul, seconded by Bella. Would anyone, mover or seconder first, like to make any comments? Paul?
Yes, the report here reflects work that we've been doing over the last, very concentratedly over the last year, but certainly over a longer period of time. It's really been a collaboration, especially with senior management and the chief, to really turn some of the concerns that there are in terms of staff wellness and diversity and inclusion into action items, which are very important. And I think we've tried to lay out in the report the specific action items so that it's not just a recognition of the issue, but it's a recognition that we're going to address the issue in very, very specific ways. The action is very important for the members of the police force, for the police department, but also for the public, because this is going to assure a really healthy relationship between the public and the members of the department going forward. And it's, I think, a very positive step for us to be taking.
Thank you, Paul, and thanks for your work as part of the subcommittee. Bella, as a seconder, did you want to add anything?
I just want to say, although I'm new to the board, I see how much work has gone into this framework, and it's really exciting to see. I love all the actionable items from it. I just think it's a really exciting work.
Thank you. Any other comments? And I will just note, because there was, as Bella said, a lot of work that went into this over many months, and the organizational culture subcommittee was myself, Sean Dillon, Charlotte Huber, and Paul Schachter. So just want to make sure that those board members are recognized for their contribution, as well as obviously the entire board for helping craft this. But some of the heavy lifting was done by those volunteer board members who are also already volunteering to do other things. So I'll just recognize that. So the motion to adopt this is on the table. All those in favor of the motion, are there any opposed? None are opposed. That carries. Well, it's 6 o'clock on the dot, and we are at the end of our agenda. That's quite remarkable. So thank you to the members of the public who joined us. We will really endeavor to get our camera back. I know it's not that satisfying to just listen. And we will see all of you next month, and we'll see all of us at committees. So I need a motion to adjourn the meeting. Thank you, Bella. Is there a seconder to adjourn? Thank you. Seconded by Charlotte. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. That carries. Oh, Sean, sorry, were you just voting, waving? No question?